Hey guys, our guest tonight is our good friend Anna Maria Manalo, who's stopping in to talk about her latest book, The Infernal. Be back in a minute. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everybody, how you doing? Happy Wednesday! Hope everybody's having a great work week. Oh my god, I crushed her. Look at that. I crushed her down by accident. Hope everybody's having a great work week. We're in the middle right now and heading into that weekend. All kinds of fun stuff. It's the holidays, Christmas lights, just parades, you name it. It's all happening right now. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts. I did it again, didn't I? Look at that. I keep hitting the wrong bloody button. There we go. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you have a paranormal issue, we can help you. It might take us a couple days to get to you because California is a huge state. People don't realize how big it is. We've got everything. We've got the ocean. We've got mountains. We've got high desert. We've got low desert. A lot of rural areas. So that's why it might take us some time to get to you. However, in the case that it does take some time to get to you, we do have mediums on staff who can phone you. And if you do have a paranormal issue going on, in most cases, they can settle the energy down until we get out there. All right, that being said, welcome. And today, if you're watching from Facebook, and a lot of you are, please be sure to hit that follow button if you haven't done so already. We're always looking for followers for this show. And also during the show, if you want to hit up the chat room or you want to just leave us some love, some thumbs up and things like that, that would help greatly too because the FYP geniuses at Facebook see that and they put us out to more people. Same thing with YouTube. I have more than 800 videos sitting over there, and they're all different topics, including stuff like this. We have medium Nancy Matz is over there, all those good topics, and the cryptids, you name it. We cover it over there. I put them all into folders so they're easier to find. So yeah, it's a great thing. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. We're trying to build that up. Well, I could taste it. We're like a little over 250 away from hitting that 1,000 mark for subscribers. So I'm real excited. So the closer we can get, the better. All right. That being said, again, same rules. Facebook and YouTube. Hit that follow. Hit that subscribe button. Show us some love, thumbs up, happy faces, and all that good stuff. And yeah, that'll put us higher in the FYP. All right. You can find California Haunts on Facebook at California Haunts Radio, Sacramento Seers, Seers, like as in Aphrodite being a seer. Okay, things like that. You can also find us over at Instagram under Ghosty Gal. You can find us on TikTok under California Haunts, Twitter we're California Haunts, Twitch I believe we're Cal Haunts, and you can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/at California Haunts Radio, and also find us at I forgot one. Oh, yes. Meetup.com, California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. That being said, let's bring Anna in and let's get this show on the road.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm here. It's really rainy and mucky and just disgusting outside. So it's nice to be indoors talking to you.
See, you get to spend time with me. I mean, that's the bright side, right?
Yes.
I know.
It's been a while.
I was at Walgreens and I happened, but my friend was with me. And I said, isn't that hat definitely me? And she looked at me and went, put it in the cart. Okay. So here we are. So I get to wear Jack and Sally for the holiday. How have you been doing? We haven't talked in a long time.
Oh, I know. So I put out this new book in time for Halloween. And now I'm starting to do a little bit of research on the next one coming up. And I don't know if I told you that I was actually going on a writing retreat to
Yes.
get it finished and completed and promoted properly. So I've been working on that, but it's been pretty quiet otherwise. I mean, I just go, on different activities locally and trying to do some Christmas shopping and just seeing different kinds of stuff, leading up to the season. So that's pretty
Mhm.
exciting.
You are so good at what you do.
I try.
It's impressive. You go all these places. It's impressive. It's really impressive. And I was just thinking about your retreat this morning, and um, you're going to. It's going to be in France, right? Because you're going to
Yes.
France for this retreat.
Yeah.
How old is the building that you're going to be staying in?
I actually haven't researched the history of that, but I understand it's from the 16th century. So it is actually pretty big, and it's a chateau, which my understanding is not necessarily a castle because it doesn't have a moat.
Right.
If you see honking or hear honking in the background, it's my dog playing with the pet pig.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
he has a plastic pet pig. So
That works.
pardon the noise because he's constantly on that, and I've moved down to the dining room because the internet seems to be stronger down here. But
Absolutely.
the chateau is smaller by a shade from a castle, and I'm told the difference is that there's no moat around it.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely renovated. And it has all these beautiful period furniture, and my understanding is a lot of it are antiques.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, if that's not
Yes.
a recipe for some action, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of you because I remember reading one of my favorite books is The Ghost of Flight 401.
Oh.
And I remember John G. Fuller, because when he started out the book, he was a skeptic, about these ghosts. But he stayed at this retreat in the Catskills. And they
Oh.
were old cabins that the writers would go to so they could be alone and write and all this. And they had a meeting place where they could meet. But he said, on the walls of each one of these cabins, writers had signed their names on these little plaques of wood, and they put them
Mm-hmm.
by the fireplace. And so he would go over and look, and the older the wood was, the darker the plaque was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they decided to get together, being writers, and they decided to do a Ouija board session. I think in his cabin. I'm not positive, but anyway, so he's observing this, and he's a skeptic, and so they're on the Ouija board, and he says, I don't know if it was Emily Dickinson. I can't remember which poet is the one that had like more darker poems.
Oh, like Edgar Allan Poe,
Yeah,
that
yeah, only it
kind
was a
of stuff.
female. Yeah, it was a
Oh,
female.
a female. Yeah, but
Elizabeth
she does
Browning
have
or
dark poems.
Dickinson. Okay, yeah, okay, it was
Yeah.
Dickinson. And this ghost that they came in contact with claimed to be Emily Dickinson.
Oh.
And so he goes to the fireplace and he's looking at at these things. And he realizes that her piece of wood is on the bricks.
Oh, great.
And so now he's getting interested because they're doing this session. Anyway, they get to a point where they say, "Well, we would like to see you."
Mm.
And the reply comes, "Sure, if you blow out the lights."
Oh.
And he says it took him a while because he was like, "We have electricity. What the hell is she talking about, right?" And then it
Mm-hmm.
dawns on him when she was there writing, they either had candlelight or they were using oil lamps,
Oh, geez.
which is where that came from. So I just thought I would share that a little bit because you're going into the chateau that's been there forever, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's going to be a lot of history in there, and you're probably going to have a lot of unseen friends moving around.
So what they're trying to do is reserve it just for us, and what in the process of doing that,
Yeah.
they blocked out all the other guests that are not related to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear my dog honking?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
okay.
okay. I'm gonna
I
take
have
the
dogs.
honking away.
Oh,
I'll be right back.
okay. I have dogs. It's all good. Believe me, my dogs, my cats. Oh my god, I got a male cat that's very vocal, so piercing screams. So I'm used to noises from animals. I love talking to Anna Maria. It's so fun. So fun. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
It's
I
not
took
any
away the
worse.
pig.
It's not any worse than my male cat that likes to be vocal constantly. And he screams, and it sounds like a death scream.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah.
But that's what it's just what he does, you know. Just how he
Yeah.
is. Um,
So,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to add before I drastically had to leave for the dog. What they did was they closed off the entire chateau, and I don't know how many rooms. It looks humongous to me, but apparently they closed it off for the next 7 nights for the
Wow.
duration. And they do have kitchen staff, obviously, because there's supposed to be a gentleman coming in to cook
Hmm.
food for us 3 times a day,
Hmm.
in addition to people who are, helping to kind of clean up and do whatever they need to do to maintain the place.
Right.
But they all leave at nightfall once everything is done. And basically, it is just the 9 of us that are going to be there.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so that part to me, I didn't anticipate because I was assuming it was just a hotel,
Right.
but apparently they closed it off. So it's gonna be probably about 15 miles, I'm told, from the closest town,
Wow.
and it has 60 hectares of land all around.
Wow.
So I think, if I am correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, a hectare is about 3 acres.
Right.
So
Wow.
figure, 60 hectares times three. That's your acreage right there. Um, so it'll be
Dang.
pretty isolated.
Well, if I were you, I'd take a flashlight and use a voice recorder, and do some stuff in there. Because you're going to have activity in that sucker, I'll tell you right now.
Oh, I just hope it's not in my bedroom. That's for sure.
Here you write about this is what gets me. I'm the same way. Here I deal with this stuff every day, for clients and everything, but I don't like it like happening to me. And here you are a writer. This is what you write about, and you're the same way I am because it's just like, no, I'm good. Just just leave me alone. I'll just write about the stuff and get your message out. But that's it.
Yeah, yeah. So so it's inspiring supposedly because it's beautiful,
Right.
but on the other hand, it also might give me some ideas,
Right.
um, to add on to this particular story. So I'll let you know when I come back.
Oh my God, yes, we have to talk about that. Definitely talk about that trip. How did you come up with the idea for the Infernal?
Actually, the Infernal was originally supposed to be nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
I had two people sign off the permission. The third person, because they still live there, they wouldn't sign off.
Oh,
So in the process of that, and my steadfast rule here is if it's 80% nonfiction, as in true, then it's nonfiction. But
right.
it starts to hover at 50%, and I had to kind of like make up the rest of it. Then it
Sure.
becomes fiction in my estimation. So true to the word I put on the cover, it's based on a true story because if you recall haunted heirlooms way
Mm-hmm.
back, and
Mm-hmm.
this is probably now going into a year since it's been published. Um, there was the very first intro, the story that involved me,
Mm-hmm.
with a haunted chair. And in that particular story, there were two gentlemen. They were both college friends
Mm-hmm.
that lived at a beach house not far from campus. So this is actually the continuation,
Okay.
of that story, what happened to them when they finally fled the beach house after we had that seance. Something lingered behind. They couldn't get rid of the chair that we ended up dragging over there.
Mm-hmm.
It finally ended up right on the edge of the water, but for some reason, the tide wouldn't even take it away. So the trash people finally took it away, and then they had lingering activity at the beach house. They
Wow.
left. So they
Right.
went hunting for another home. And this is where this begins because they're just such lucky people. And the third one was pretty happy not to join them. He stayed in the same town where they rented, but he didn't rent with them anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this story picks up where that left off. And basically, they end up researching the house, and later on, years and years later, shared with me what happened to them.
Awesome. 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 That chair was very haunted.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was some spooky stuff. I have a haunted table over here, in my dining room, but not like that chair. The activity
Oh
wasn't even
my.
close to that chair at all.
Does it
So
move? Does it have any
no, but
kind of?
it had a being attached to it. That's still there. So it had an attachment.
So when you're entertaining, you get an extra guest at the table?
Yes. Yes. That's, I try not to go in there because even going in there, you can feel it.
Oh my.
You could feel it. Like I used to do homework and stuff at that table, and I always felt uneasy there. And and now I know why. Because I've had a psychic come through and say, hey, there's something attached to that.
The more I do this, Charlotte, and I don't know if this is true for you, but the more I walk into these antique stores, the more
Mhm.
sensitive I become without meaning to or without trying to. Like recently, just about 2 weeks ago, as a matter of fact, a friend of mine had taken me on a little antique trip. And we went to a couple of stores that was probably about maybe 30, 40 minutes away. And I walked into a corner that was heavily loaded with, sometimes these stores are filled to the brim
Mhm.
because they're trying different kinds of consigners or people who want to sell their stuff. And there was something about this. They called it an antique rest.
Mhm.
You rest your neck. It's supposed to be a pillow, but
Mhm.
it's made out of porcelain. And I don't know if you've ever seen one, but it actually is made out of porcelain, doesn't look anything like a pillow, but it's kind of like just a wedge. And back in the day, apparently, this is of Japanese origin.
Mhm.
People laid their neck, not their head, they laid their neck on this rest and slept that way.
Wow.
So, first of all, it was odd when we approached it. I've never seen anything like it before, but it also had some kind of an aura attached to it.
Mhm.
It's hard to explain. First of all, antique stores sometimes do creep you out because it's musty.
Mhm.
Two, it comes sometimes with an unmistakable scent.
Right.
It's not clean. Is the
Right.
only way I can describe it. And when I approached this neck rest, it was kind of uh, dread is the feeling I got from it. So whoever owned it before
Mhm.
left some kind of an imprint on it, and we didn't even touch it. I mean, we tend to touch things and examine them, and we try not to pick them up depending on how much they cost. But sometimes in trying to figure out whether it's real, you have to pick it up like a teacup, look on the
Right.
bottom, see if it's numbered and marked.
Mhm.
And I've picked up numerous objects in the past to look to see if they were real or not or whatever. And this is one of them that kind of like instantly just repelled us and said, no, just don't bother with it. You don't want it anywhere near you.
Right. Right.
So we kind of veered away. So I'm becoming that I just noticed personally increasingly sensitive to
The more
these
you're
type.
around it.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
So you probably feel the same way.
I do. In fact, I know because I was sensitive as a kid, but then you get to that certain age and you're not sensitive because you got other things going on in your life. But then when I got into hanging out with the paranormal teams, it came back, and it came back in weird ways.
Hmm.
Where it kept increasing. So the more I did it, the more sensitive I got again. And I was
Hmm.
going to ask you about that because you do write these books, and I was going to ask you if you find yourself having more experiences.
Well, it's interesting because initially I wasn't really that sensitive to it, which is probably
Mm-hmm.
why I was more adventurous and a risk taker.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that there's a group in my friendship circle that does like antiques. And if you're on Facebook with me, which you are,
Yes.
you've seen I've wandered through a few of them
Mm-hmm.
recently. And the one of them, it's interesting because you look through all kinds of objects because there's so many, you don't really know which one has something attached to it or some type of imprint because there's so many. But
Right.
generally, if you walk into a hallway and there's something there that's kind of bothering you, sometimes it's just a feeling of sadness,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or maybe even kind of like a sense that you're being watched, which I don't like.
Right.
So, yes, so I have to say, the more I go and wander off, the more in tune I become. It's almost like you're honing in on a foreign language and
Mm-hmm.
you're starting to understand the nuances of the language.
Right.
The more you're in the presence of these things, the more you can tell which one is okay and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to it, and which one is not.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that leads to this kid that's in this book that I wrote, her attraction to these kinds of things that seem to be alluring her, that kind of like inviting her to
Mm-hmm.
approach it and touch it, and ultimately she took it home.
Wow. Well, that's how it happens. That's how it happens. Do you find yourself? Oh, I lost me. Hang on.
Oh,
Let me get back
I'm
in.
here.
It's gonna be one of those days. You can tell.
Oh
Computer's been
no.
doing. Computer's been doing weird stuff all day. So let's see what I can do here. I'm gonna pop us onto a restart here and see what happens. Hang on.
Okay.
There we go. Oop, lost her. Sorry about that. This camera, for some reason, the USB plug is very sensitive. So if I move my knee a certain way, it'll disconnect itself for some reason, even though it's all plugged in. Who knows? No, hell no.
Could be activity.
Could be that. They could be talking to us as we're talking about them, right? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So you collect antiques.
Yes, actually, I just got one that is a toothpaste toothbrush container. If there ever was a container for anything, this was the strangest thing I've come upon. It looks to me like it's genuinely antique.
Hmm.
I don't know how long ago people used to use a toothpaste and toothbrush. It's not a holder. It's not like one of those things that you get at a store where you
Right,
stand the toothbrush in little holes
right.
and there's like a toothpaste tube, slot. It's more like a pencil case. So you open up the porcelain cap, the lid, and you put one toothbrush, and hopefully your toothpaste tube fits in because it's
Wow,
kind of narrow.
that's different.
Yeah, it's different. That one I actually picked up because I was pretty tuned into, I don't want to bring anything home. I
Right.
picked it up, I turned it over, looked at it, played with it for a little bit of time, and I felt nothing.
Wow.
So, but that being the case, I did buy it. I thought it was a curio and it was interesting. And actually, I'm gonna use it as a centerpiece when I go to my book fest and do my book signings. I'll plunk it right there for people to see, and it'll be a conversation piece about an antique.
That is really cool, though.
Yeah,
That I've
it's very
never heard of
different.
anything like that. I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's different. And it was the only one, in the case. They had all kinds of different cosmetic cases and
Hmm.
compacts and ballpoint pens. This one just sat by itself.
That's really cool. That's definitely cool. What about big items? Did you get tables or anything like that from these antique shops?
No, not really. We're kind of, well, I wouldn't say it's crowded, but it's like kind
Hmm.
of like at the point where we downsized and the house is now comfortable. We eliminated a lot of things from the old home, and so we've gotten to the point where we're only bringing with us usable things. So
Hmm.
what I find myself is doing is I just confine it to porcelain. I
Hmm.
just do little items. I think the biggest ones that I have are Himalayan singing bowls, if you've heard of them.
Right, 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 right.
And they have a totally different energy. They're just very serene when you play them.
Hmm.
But other than that, I get little things like tea and saucer sets, and little things like
Hmm.
something that carries cookies and things of that nature. So I
Okay,
had to
cool, cool.
downsize.
And now it's
Yeah.
a lot easier because you can get a feeling of whether it's got attachment or not, so that helps.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And they're just cuter, because
Hmm.
we have a smaller house. So I figured, okay, I'll look at things that are more tabletop. I still
Hmm.
collect blue and white. So that's probably the biggest ones, I would say. It's sometimes I get vases, stuff like
Hmm.
that. But I make sure I open the lid and get a feel of what's inside, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And you never know if it's sealed, I walk away. I am not about to discover like a Pandora's box.
Do not buy Roman antiquities.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
um, been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know, as a writer of these books, I mean, how do you protect yourself? Because I know even when I'm out shooting video of my investigations, and I bring that stuff home, and I'm working on
Hmm.
the evidence, and I'm doing all this. What do you do to protect yourself to keep these things from coming to you? Because people don't realize that, even though you've left it behind and you're just writing about it, it'll
Hmm.
still come to you.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I had quite a number of incidents when I was writing Night Visitants,
Hmm.
and that taught me a lesson. Um, and the interesting part about this is, for about a lifetime now, since I
Hmm.
was about 2 years old, I've always been around these types of energy,
Hmm.
negative energy. And through the years, being raised as a Roman Catholic, I've been taught a lot of protection prayers.
Hmm.
But most recently, I renewed that in the form of actually consulting people who investigate like you do.
Hmm.
And I've gotten a few books on protection prayers. I pray to Padre Pio, who is someone who was a very avid exorcist in his time, a very
Hmm.
effective one, as a matter of fact. And one of the things that I've learned to do is to actually recite them
Hmm.
very fervently, including the rosary, before I sit down and actually absorb myself in a couple of chapters to write a book.
Hmm.
Um, when I was writing Night Visitants, and this goes back to April when it was released, I had a few incidents that were very unsettling.
Hmm.
And I don't know if we've discussed that, but that was one where I actually had to pause for 2 weeks in the writing of the book
Wow.
before I finally picked it up again.
Hmm.
I was already halfway through the book. It was very disarming. I found that I was dealing with dualities in the writing of the book. The dualism coming from the good and the bad. And there's a constant battle between those two forces that happen within each of our lifetimes. What wins determines how much we evolve spiritually.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's a constant battle. Everything they say constantly moves, and the movements are always in the negative or the positive direction.
Hmm.
So when I wrote Night Visitants, I was not aware I was going to be dealing with those dualities. The gentleman I wrote it about, all his experiences were positive.
Hmm.
On the other hand, the woman he referred to me, whom he referred to as an abductee, was dealing with all negative experiences.
Hmm.
So what I did was I interwove their experiences so that you could easily, or the reader could easily see the juxtaposition of the force between good and evil. It's
Mhm.
probably the best way I can explain it. And I've never thought I would write the book in that way, but I did.
Mhm.
With the Infernal, what I ended up doing was I was introducing the background of how this happened to this
Mhm.
house, because the history of it was shared with me after some extensive research and talking to other people who were
Mhm.
in the vicinity. I decided I would start with this child's story because this centers on a very troubled child. The child grew up in a very dysfunctional family. It was very toxic. And in the process, she herself was progressively becoming depressed and withdrawn. And
Mhm.
she started turning inwards were it not for two close friends that were
Mhm.
in school.
Mhm.
So I began with that. And then I progressed to what was happening because of the way she left that home.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's a cautionary tale, Charlotte, for every parent out there who has a child who might be withdrawing from them or feels alienated from the rest of the family.
Mhm.
Because in this case, what happened was the child was a gifted artist. She loved to read. So, unlike the other teens of the day, and this was set in the 70s, she
Mhm.
would go to the public library with her friends to study, but she would also explore books.
Mhm.
And in the process, she stumbled upon a book, which is actually a very rare book. It had several editions. The sixth edition had about, I would say, 50 to 60 plates. That is detailed illustrations of demons. And it's
Wow.
called the Dictionnaire Infernal. Um, it was authored by a gentleman who was French in the 16th century. The first five editions had no drawings, but it had detailed explanations of what they do.
Mhm.
Obviously, not benevolent.
Mhm.
And then someone decided to make illustrations. I don't know where he got the illustrations from,
Right.
whether he was inspired in a malevolent way to show what they look like. I have no research on that. I found very little on it. And frankly, Charlotte, I don't want to research that much on this particular book or spend
I
any
wouldn't either.
no. But suffice it to say that the book is rare. There is a limited number of the book that's the actual copies from the
Mhm.
original copyright. There are copies of it on Amazon. I would not tell people to purchase it.
Mhm.
If they're curious, they could probably take a look at it for whatever reason or another. This child decided she found it in a public library stack, all the way up in the eaves of the library. And she started to make illustrations of the sketches.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Talk about channeling. Woo!
Yeah.
That kind of energy. Yikes.
So
Yikes.
there's two explanations, Shar, and I'm curious which one you would want to endorse. But I mean, not to put you on the spot, but there is one theory that when you put your intention,
Mhm.
when you put all your energy into actually trying to make come to life something that is just something two-dimensional, like
Mhm.
a drawing in this
Mhm.
case, sometimes they happen. And it brings back the name of an anthropologist, Alexandra David Neal,
Mhm.
who actually conjured an entity, but it was a very friendly entity.
Mhm.
It was something she learned by going to Tibet and learning from monks the fact that your mind is so strong that it can actually create or have the ability to create something that can be visible and can move, can be animated for weeks on end.
Mhm.
Um, and if you look in the back of this book, I make reference to her. I also make reference to a film called Harvey. Harvey is actually a rabbit. You're laughing.
Right. Yes. I
Yes.
love the movie.
Yeah, and even in Canada, they replicated these experiments and they were successful. So the one school of thought said to me, and then this is during my writing, I've, asked a few people about it.
Mm-hmm.
They said it sounds to me like it's a thought form,
Mm-hmm.
a really bad thought form, obviously a very evil and powerful thought form.
Mm-hmm.
And then the exorcist said to me, no, that's something that was conjured. The girl was possibly a black witch. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is something she did by reading the book and concentrating her efforts to
Mm-hmm.
try to avenge herself of all the stuff that she suffered.
That also makes sense to me. I had issues when I was training to look into demonology, for my team. And I remember
Hmm.
reading a couple books. I remember the weird things that were happening because I was so into I was so into reading this book that I don't know if my mind was doing it or what was going on, but just by reading this stuff, negative things were happening in my house as I was reading. So I stopped taking the class. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done with this. But as far as the conjuring thing in your mind, I have heard of that. I've heard of people saying that with EVPs. There is a building, and I'm not going to say where it's at here in California, where a lot of people go to ghost hunt. It's very famous for its lady ghost. The problem was it was never haunted.
Oh,
The original owner made up a story, and
oh,
then of course subsequently the ghost hunters went in there and they created this energy for him over the years of going in there. So when you do go in there, you still because you believe she's there, you still get the EVPs, you still get stuff, but it's like an imprint of what people have created with their minds. So it can be done, via the mind like that.
it
But it's
reminds me
sad.
of Slender Man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
mean, have you? I've never come across the actual website or heard about it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to remember the name of the kid who actually originally put the website together and created
Mm-hmm.
Slender Man. And because it was just a myth, but it gained energy with all its followers,
Yes.
making
Yes.
something out of thin air.
Yep.
And this these were three kids in their early
Mm-hmm.
teens who wanted this to happen and spent weeks and weeks and weeks and even maybe even months, from what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
um, trying to bring something to life in their own fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so to me, it's kind of like Slender Man in the way of, I mean, if you can create something negative, you can also create something positive.
Right.
But the combination of the book itself
Mm-hmm.
that they found plus what they wanted, I think that was really just a lethal combination. And you're right, when you read these things, I did not believe it, to tell you the truth. The first
Right.
time it was told to me, I'd never heard of the book, never knew anything about the book, and I thought, why would anyone take the time to draw detailed sketches
Mm-hmm.
of all these entities that no one wants to have anything to do with?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
someone actually, interestingly enough, said to me, it's real. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was to me very puzzling, first of all, why someone would author a book like that.
Right.
Because it could go anywhere. It could be in the hands, in this case, it ended up in the hands of a child.
Right. Right. And there's a children's book about that stuff too. You know that, right? That's out on the market.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I've shot it. Once in a while that comes across Facebook, and you can see it, and it's children's stories. It's along the line of children's stories of the satanic,
Oh, great.
but it is out there circulating. And then people buy it. I don't know why people would buy it for their kid, but you know what I mean. Somehow it reaches people to buy it for their kids, and I don't understand. I just don't get it. I don't get why you would buy something like that. And then, even though it's illustrated for children and all this, I just it boggles my mind. Now the Constantinos, you know who they are, right? The Constantinos EVP
No,
experts.
no, no.
They're
Tell
they're
me.
not, they're no longer they're no longer with us, but they were like the top at one time. They were the top EVP experts in the Western United States, and they were doing studies on this. They were doing studies on creating their own ghosts that they would actually catch on EVP.
Mm.
And at the time of their deaths, they were starting to publish this stuff, where they were able to create just with their mind certain types of ghosts, certain types of personalities, and then do these EVP sessions and get the answers from these created ghosts. So it's
You
an
know,
interesting study.
it's interesting because if you notice, in the midst of doing these things, something happens to them, which
Hmm.
I find very disquieting. So
Hmm.
I guess what I would like to ask is, did they die naturally or did something tragic happen to them?
It was tragic. It was very tragic. Um, I'll send you the info afterwards. I don't want to talk about it now,
Okay.
but it was very what happened was very 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 tragic and shocking, to be perfectly honest.
Oh
And I
my.
see that all the time. People that delve with this stuff, they don't realize what it's when you start delving into the paranormal, whether it's negative or positive, how much it takes out of you
Mm-hmm.
because it sucks your energy down. You have to be careful. I know it's all fun. It's all fun. It's like the Catholic Church says. Sometimes it's all fun and games until you have to call a priest.
Yes. Yes.
Because inadvertently, when something happens, even the biggest skeptics, they get to that point where it's gotten out of hand. Then they call a priest, whether they're Catholic or not. They call a priest out to
Yeah.
undo the damage. You can't play with that stuff. And like with her, she was fascinated. She was probably fascinated with it, and she got so involved with it, it just sucked her in. I mean, that's where you have what is it, the 4 or 5 stages of possession, because there's
Mm-hmm.
several stages people go through for possession. You know, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, and she was just fascinated enough. She wanted to draw these things to see what they look like, and she just kept getting more and more and more and more into it. It's frightening.
And Charlotte, the saddest part is this is a gifted child
Hmm.
that, if the parents had just been more supportive of her and
Right.
recognized her potential and veered her energy in a positive way, it
Hmm.
wouldn't have turned out the way that it had. I mean, I'm not going to give away the ending, but
Right. Right. Right.
um, the
It's a great
saddest
ending,
part
though.
about the whole thing is she's got. Thank you. I kind of left it open because I really honestly don't know where she is.
Right.
I honestly don't know what had happened or transpired after the one girl.
Hmm.
And we don't know where the boy is either. I mean, they're
Hmm.
both grown people if they're both alive. But it's a cautionary tale for parents to
Yes.
really watch what their kids are doing.
Hmm.
That means she's disappearing for hours on end. She ends up on the attic of the next door neighbor's house.
Yeah.
Nobody even knew that she had been occupying that attic. And it's sad when you think about how busy people have become these days, that they
Hmm.
don't realize where their children are half the time.
Hmm.
And children want their power, they want their identity, they want to excel in something.
Hmm.
And this child definitely was very precocious. She excelled in being an artist, but it got channeled in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just sad. It's sad. Like you say, parents need to keep a closer eye on their kids and be more involved in what are you reading today? What are you doing? Where are you going? And just keep more track of them, because it's so easy for them to get a hold of this kind of stuff and slip right in.
And kids are very impressionable. So, when
Yes.
you were just telling me a few minutes ago that there's children's books out there with illustrations like that, I mean, my gosh, it doesn't take much for a for a child
No.
to truly believe what they're reading. And the next
Mhm.
thing you know, they're, talking about it, sharing it
Mhm.
with friends. And, they have nightmares about it. And who knows what's entering the room.
Right. Exactly. Just like the Ouija boards. That's the other thing that I get irritated about. Bad enough that they're out on the market, but they custom make them for boys and girls to make it more appealing.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Like
the
the
pink
Barbie
Ouija
doll.
board. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a pink Ouija board out there for girls, for little girls to play with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Wow.
mean, whether the companies are doing this on purpose because they're being run by somebody that's that's not so nice, or whether it's just a thing because they think it's a fun game. Who knows? But these things are on the market, and it's really scary to see. Like you can go in any bookstore. I mean, Barnes and Noble, right? They sell them there,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right next to the tarot cards and all that. But they're the children's toys and all that. So I just don't get it, and a lot of people just take that stuff too lightly because they think it's a joke until something
Well,
goes
they
wrong.
think it's just pure entertainment. And
That
here's
too.
the part that's telling me, are we getting into a generation where people, just for lack of simple knowledge, can't seem to find something more entertaining than to
Mhm.
delve into subjects like this?
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes it's telling me that there's just not enough information out there to feed on.
Mhm.
So they're thinking, oh, it's all glamorous to own an antique that's haunted.
Right. Right.
Let's go and see if we can get someone from the dead to come back up. And it's not a parlor game. I keep saying that in every podcast I go on.
Mhm.
And the Roman Catholic Church that's close to me, thank goodness, is run by a Monsignor who's very understanding and very receptive to the fact that there are things out there that could hurt
Mhm.
us. I've seen more conservative clergy that
Mhm.
will hush people when they talk about, oh, I think something's wrong with my child and it's not psychiatric.
Right. Right.
This one is actually very receptive. Now, I don't know about their parishioners. I won't go into
Mhm.
that, but suffice it to say, the clergy themselves are a lot more open-minded, so that if you approach them and tell them that there's a disturbance somewhere, they will react and
Mhm.
react in a suitable fashion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I've met people who have actually called in paranormal investigators, gotten some results, gotten some recommendations, and moved forward. Thank goodness some of them chose to move, and that
Mhm.
ended the misery.
Mhm.
Sometimes they stay just because it was in the family for a long time. So they go ahead and go through 10 million different ways to try to rid whatever is infesting the house.
Right. Right.
Um, but yes, I mean, going back to your original question, you have to really know to protect yourself. You have to be, I hate to be trite. I mean, I'm not trying to be a Bible thumper, but you do have to be
Mhm.
close to God. And your
You do.
prayers
Yeah.
have to be sincere. Yeah.
Yep.
You can't
Yeah.
just simply
Absolutely.
recite them and say, oh, yeah, now we're done. And now, you have to really be fervently praying and you have
Mhm.
to really have a relationship. So there goes
Mhm.
my bandstand or
Well,
soapbox.
when you talk about the Catholics and the priests, for a long time they looked down on ghost hunters and what we did because we're out doing the
Hmm.
stuff that you're not supposed to be dabbling in. But now, from doing this for 18 years, I've seen changes. Like you say, there's changes now. There's more open minded priests. Plus, they want records. They want records of what's going on in the house before they go out. They want to know, exactly not exactly what's going on, but they want to have a pretty good idea of what they're going to be facing if they do decide to go out. So we're the first line of defense. We're the first ones that have to go in and interview these people and do the investigation. And if we and then figure it out and go, yeah, I think we need to go talk to the church about this. Clergy out here to deal with this. We can't deal with it. This is something that we
Yeah.
can't handle. Had a case
Yeah.
out here where the child actually did the spider walk, like in the Exorcist movie,
Oh, wonderful.
and so we had to call clergy on that one. And that went back years. That was a what they call an ancestral thing that went back years, because the grandmother or somebody in that family had been dealing in voodoo and black magic and stuff, and they didn't know it until all this stuff started happening to this little girl. But that's what I'm saying is that the opinions of the church has swayed a little bit in our favor because they want us to keep meticulous records before they come out so they can see, and that way they can present it to the bishop or whatever to say, look, there's the ghost hunters were there, this is what's going on out here, I think I should go and
Mm-hmm.
help these people. But yeah, that opinion has changed completely. You're right. I'm not saying they're mellowing out, but they're
Mm-hmm.
actually they're actually looking at us in a more favorable light because we're the first line of defense on this stuff.
And that's good because there always used to be a stigma of you're just going in there and playing around,
Hmm.
or you're doing this just because you want to be popular or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that definitely on the whole there's paranormal investigators there like you who are very serious about
Hmm.
what they're doing. Of course there's also the ones that just are looking for sensationalism.
Absolutely.
um, and sometimes I don't, I don't claim to know all of them, but
Hmm.
certainly I've met some really good ones that I would be proud to know because they are there to find a solution for these
Hmm.
people who are suffering just because, just something that they weren't aware they shouldn't do, were doing,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
they move into a home that they never thought was infested.
Hmm.
Once it begins, it's very hard to remove. I
Yes.
attest to that. I lived
Yeah.
in two homes that were infested, and because of that, we need a higher level of protection. We always
Yes.
have to be mindful and to remember. And I'm trying to remember the phrase that's been used. They're out there roaring like a lion, waiting to pounce on you as soon
Hmm.
as you let down your guard, and that's the evil that
Yeah.
lurks around. And it is a sad thing, for people who don't believe in multidimensionality.
Hmm.
Um, these things that are lurking around us are very close to our dimension.
Hmm.
And the ones that are benevolent, because they have progressed so much more, are way higher, but they are not that hard to summon either. And the sad part is people like to dramatize things. They want to summon something that's more entertaining for them, as opposed to someone who is so kind and so benevolent. And say, oh, well, that's boring because nothing dramatic will happen. Well, guess
Hmm.
what? You don't want drama.
No,
You
we
don't
don't.
want illness. You don't want misfortune. You don't want to lose your job.
Yeah.
So that's just my personal opinion.
And I don't know what the laws are out now across the United States, but I know in California now, if somebody has died in the house, they have to tell you.
Hmm.
If the house has a ghost, they have to tell you. They have to tell you the house is haunted before you buy the house now.
Well,
So
that's
people
great.
don't get people don't get stuck in ugly situations. I don't know what it is back east if they have the same kind of rules, but that's what it is out here. People
It
have to,
depends
people
on
have
the
to disclose
state.
it.
From what I recall, someone had mentioned to me that, and I could be wrong, but I think someone mentioned to me that in New York, you don't have to. I mean, other than the fact that, you need a sump pump in the basement, that kind of stuff.
Right,
Um, in Pennsylvania, I understand that they don't have to disclose either. So you don't know what you're stepping into. Um,
right.
the general disclosure is more like the structural stuff rather than anything that's paranormal. And I think it has to do with how conservative the community is, to tell you the truth. I
Hmm.
mean, I think that a lot of times people poo poo it when they're told something like that. And some people will definitely buy something just because it's haunted. And I think that's
Hmm.
totally crazy. Um,
Absolutely. I know we've
yeah.
gotten calls in the past to go out to somebody's house before they decide to buy and
I
take
would
a
do
look around the
that.
house. If it's haunted. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would do that if I ever had to, and knock on wood, I love this house that we're in.
Hmm.
It is
Hmm.
so bright and so light. I walk in and I'm very happy to sleep in it. I'm very happy to live in it. A lot of good things have happened in this house. Not too many bad things have
Hmm.
happened. As a matter of fact, no bad things have happened in this house.
Right, right, right.
Uh, and I think it helps when you're, when you build something in celebration of a
Mhm.
deity, whoever you choose to worship, that should be
Mhm.
very visible in the
Mhm.
house. And that increases the energy. At least it did for me, for us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I think that when you're walking into something that feels in despair,
Mhm.
almost lonely or menacing or heavy, it's a heaviness.
Mhm.
And no matter how many lights you turn on, it's dark. And Charlotte, I shared some pictures of a home recently that I was looking at. And I think you saw one bedroom there.
Mhm.
Um, the first thing I thought of, and this is far away, this is in another country, it immediately shot out to me that something had happened there.
Mhm.
Do you recall
Absolutely.
that?
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. If you walk into a place like that, just like you were talking about the antiques, if you walk into a home or something and that's what you get the feeling of, then you're probably right. Those first impressions, you're probably
Mm-hmm.
right because energy, wood, wood and stucco and all the building materials will hold energy, and that's where it stays. Whether it's positive or negative, it'll hold that energy. So I mean, if you have sensitive abilities, which you do, or whoever walks in, it's like anything else. Like for me, before I realized just how strong my abilities were, going to pick up mail because I used to have a direct mail advertising business. And so there was this apartment that I had to go pick up mail, and I got in the elevator, and I thought, "Oh no, I don't want to be in this elevator." So I bailed, went home. My dad went to pick the mail up. Turns out some guy was stabbed and killed there a week before,
Oh, wonderful.
and I picked up on that energy. But buildings. That's why ghost hunters like to go to old hotel, old hotels, and run down buildings and stuff because all that energy is kept within the walls.
Yeah. So it's
Hmm.
not per se that it's haunted. It's
Right,
the feelings that were there. The energy of the feelings remain.
right, yeah. You can
Yeah.
feel all that. Someday I'll get WD-40. Gives it kind of that
It's,
creepy feeling, doesn't it?
yeah. And,
Um,
and, and it's weird because, like in the case of this picture that I put on Facebook, I'd
right.
never been there. I never even entered the house. I never got as
Hmm.
far as just looking at the picture.
Right.
And there were two pictures that stood out to me. And people who are curious, they can go on my Facebook page.
Yes.
They probably have to scroll down a little bit because this was probably a week ago when I posted it. But
Hmm.
it's a picture of a bedroom
Hmm.
of a house that's for sale in a foreign country. I won't say which foreign country, but
Hmm.
there are two beds and they're facing a closet. The closet is the focal point of the room. And if you look inside the closet, you'll discover something that to me was a little unsettling.
Hmm.
Um, and eventually, when you look again, you realize what it is. But the first impression you have kind
Hmm.
of just comes across to you. It
Right.
speaks to you.
Right.
Um, another picture has another bedroom in it. And in that one, right behind the bed on the wall are pictures of butterflies. I actually posted that as well after some people, there was a series of comments on the thread. Charlotte, that one, one was yours.
Right.
So I went back to the ad and I actually posted more of
Oh.
the house without disclosing, too much about where it is or whatever.
Right.
Um, but that second bedroom, someone made a comment that a 14-year-old girl passed away on that bed, on that particular,
Oh.
in that particular room.
Wow.
And it was a sad state of affairs. She passed away because of an
Hmm.
illness, and somehow is, I'm told, lingering. The child
Hmm.
is lingering in the room, also lingering in the kitchen. I also took a picture, or didn't take a picture, but posted a picture of the
Hmm.
actual small kitchen
Hmm.
where the child would play and walk around. And I was told the child was also in that particular room because it was a favorite spot of hers where she spent time with her mother.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the homes tell stories,
Yes, they do.
and
They tell stories.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
as so that
Although,
as while we're talking about this, I'm getting creeped out about going to that chateau.
well, when we talk about like haunted items, real quick before you go, I know,
Okay.
I know you need to be moving around here.
Mhm.
eBay. Oh my God! If you go on eBay and you type in haunted dolls or haunted items, I mean, you will get page after page after page of stuff. And I know people that will buy haunted dolls just to have them.
Mhm.
And my whole thought is, oh my God, you're asking for it. You might get
Yeah.
lucky a few times, but at some point, you're going to get one particular doll that isn't so nice. You can't.
Yeah.
It's just. It's not. You can't dabble in that stuff. I think my dad used to say it too. About that whole mind over matter thing to create stuff. His
Mhm.
theory, his saying was, if you wish hard enough and you hope hard enough, your dream will come true. And I think he
Mhm.
was referring to like negativity and stuff. Because you can create whatever you need to create in your mind with your mind. And I
Yeah.
carry that with me to this day. But people that want to buy haunted objects, I mean, unless you're John Zaffis and know what to do with them, you know what I mean? It's like I don't see myself like purposefully on eBay going, "Oh, look, that looks creepy. Let's buy that." That's not my thing. And I've been doing this for 18 years. You think because you look at my videos on TikTok. I mean, I'm doing creepy faces. I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not that kind of person. This is just for fun. I'm not going to sit there and buy a book about demons. I'm not going to sit there and buy a haunted doll. I'm just not my gig. But there's just so much stuff out there that people can access. Whether it's
Eh,
haunted or not. As long as it
yeah.
says haunted, they're going to buy it.
Yeah. And I think people inwardly like to be scared just for the fun of it, but
Yeah.
not realize the consequence, the long-term effects of these
Mhm.
things, which are not fun.
Mhm.
And a lot of it also come from the media. When you think about
Yes.
it, we came out with the movie Annabelle.
Yes.
A lot of people, went to see that and still are, renting it out on Netflix, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
now Annabelle's in a museum and has been for years. And you periodically see people posing and standing like, oh, look at me. I'm standing right next to Annabelle.
Right.
Well, beyond that, after the film has been processed or posted or whatever,
Mhm.
there's the menace that's entailed in being around an object that has an entity.
Yes.
So it's not like I'm trying to be Debbie Downer, but it's the
Right.
truth.
It's the
It's
truth. It's
just
the
one of
truth.
those things you don't take lightly.
Yeah, and there are people that take it lightly. You're right. You're absolutely right. Like the people that even walk in there and challenge Annabelle end up in car accidents, end up getting hurt and things like
Yeah.
that. And it's just not a
Yeah.
game. It's not a game. You know what? It's always fun to talk to you. It's always a good
Thank you.
time. Always have fun
It's a
with
good
you.
time.
It's always a good time. Always a good time to talk to you. So don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you a little bit off screen. I'll tell you about that couple and
Oh,
what happened
okay.
with them. I'll tell you about that couple.
Okay.
So I'll close this out and then we'll talk for a couple more minutes and then I'll let you go. You get back to your
All
Sunday.
right.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So just don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. All right. That was great. It's always fun to talk to Anna Maria. Tomorrow we've got another one of our favorite authors coming on, Sylvia Schultz. She is the author of this scary Christmas book that we're reading for the season, and she's also the author of also a ghost hunter who likes to go ghost hunting and write her books as well. And she's visited the Peoria State Mental Hospital several times, and she has a book about her return there. And it's a very interesting book. I've read it from cover to cover, and I just love reading her stuff. She's going to be with us tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, to talk about her books. And that's Sylvia Schultz. So don't miss that show tomorrow. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. There's always tech issues. That's what we go through. It's just how we are here. Loose ship. But I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. So I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific with Sylvia Schultz. So here we go. Let me get us out of here. Boom.